Hello, welcome back to Reading Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, pictures by Garrett Williams. Today I will be reading Chapter 3 of Charlotte's Web called Escape. Since this chapter is very long, this video will also be long. Thumbs up if you enjoyed the last few videos, and if you want to see more, subscribe. It shows me how much you guys want to read more. You have a choice. You could read from your own book or use the photos up here to think of what they're doing. And predict too. Go on the first video, predict what you think is going to happen next. Then go to the second video, predict. And now you've got your own prediction. It's so easy. So tune in for more books. You just need to predict every day. I'll be uploading this story all day. So, let's continue on with this chapter. The barn was very large. It was very old. It smelled of hay and it smelled of manure. It smelled of the perspiration or the smell of tired horses and the wonderful sweet breath of patient cows. It often had a sort of peaceful smell, as though nothing bad could happen ever again in the world. It smelled of grain, and of harness, dressing of axle, grease, and of rubber boots, and of new rope. And whenever the cat was given a fish head to eat, the barn would smell of fish, but mostly it smelled of hay, for there would always be hay in the great loft up overhead. And there would always be hay coming down to the cows and the horses and the sheep. The barn was pleasantly warm in winter when the animals spent most of their time indoors. And it was pleasantly cool in summer when the big doors stood wide open to the breeze. The barn had stalls on the main floor for the workhorses, tie-ups on the main floor for the cows, a sheepfold down below for the sheep, a pig pen down below for Wilbur, and it was full of all sorts of things you find in barns. Ladders, grindstones, pitchforks, monkey wrenches, lawn mowers, snow shovels, axe handles, mail pails, water buckets, empty grain sacks, and rusty rat traps. It was the kind of barn that swallows like to build their nests in. It was the kind of barn that children like to play in, and the whole thing was owned by Fern's uncle, Mr. Homer L. Zuckerman. Wilbur's new home in the lower part of the barn, directly underneath the cow, Mr. Zuckerman knew that manure pile was a good place to keep a young pig. Pigs need warmth, and it was warm and comfortable down there in the barn cellar on the south side. Fern came almost every day to visit him. She found an old milking stool that has been discarded, and she found the stool in the sheepfold next to Wilbur's pen. Here she sat quietly during the long afternoons, thinking and listening and watching Wilbur. The sheep soon got to know her and trusted her. So did the geese, who lived with the sheep. All the animals trusted her. She was quiet and friendly. Mr. Zuckerman did not allow her to take Wilbur out, and he did not allow her to get in the pig pen either. But he told Fern that she could sit on the stool and watch Wilbur as long as she wanted to. It made her happy just to be near the pig, and it made Wilbur happy just to know that she was sitting there, right outside his pen. But he never had any fun. No walks, no rides, no swims. One afternoon in June, when Wilbur was almost 2 months old, he wandered out into his small yard outside the barn. Fern had not arrived for her usual visit. Wilbur stood in the sun feeling lonely and bored. There's never anything around to do here, he thought. He walked slowly to his food trough and sniffed to see if anything had been overlooked at lunch. He found a small strip of potato skin and ate it. His back scratched, so he leaned against the fence and rubbed against the boards. When he got tired of this, he walked indoors, climbed to the top of the manure pile, and sat down. He didn't feel like going to sleep. He didn't feel like digging. He was tired of standing still, tired of lying down. I'm less than 2 months old, and I'm tired of living, he said. He walked out to the yard again. When I'm out here, he said, there's no place to go but in. When I'm indoors, there's no place to go but out in the yard. That's when you're wrong, my friend, said a voice. Wilbur looked through the fence and saw the goose standing there. You don't have to stay in that dirty little yard, said that goose, who talked rather fast. One of the boards is loose. Push on it, push on it, and come on out. What? Said Wilbur. Say it slower. At the risk of repeating myself, said the goose, I suggest that you come on out. It's wonderful out here. Did you say a board was loose? That I did, said the goose. Wilbur walked up to the fence and saw that the goose was right. One board was loose. He put his head down, shut his eyes, and pushed. The board gave way. In a minute, he had squeezed through the fence and was standing in the long grass outside his yard. The goose chuckled. How does it feel to be free? She asked. I like it, said Wilbur. That is, I guess I like it. Actually, Wilbur felt cured to be outside his fence, with nothing between him and the big world. Where do you think I'd better go? Anywhere you like. Anywhere you like, said the goose. Go down through the orchard, root up the sod, go down the garden, dig up the radishes, rot up everything. Eat grass, look for corn, look for oats, run all over, skip and dance, jump and prance, go down through the orchard and stroll in the woods. The world is a wonderful place when you're young. I can see that, replied Wilbur. He gave a jump in the air, twirled, ran a few steps, stopped, looked around, sniffed the smells of the afternoon, and then set off, walking down through the orchard. Paused in the shade of an apple tree. He put his strong snout in the ground and began pushing, digging, and rooting. He felt very happy. He had plowed up quite a piece of ground before anyone noticed him. Mrs. Zuckerman was the first to see him. She saw him from the kitchen window, and she immediately shouted from the men. Homer! She cried. Pigs out! Lurvy! Pigs out! Homer! Lurvy! Pigs out! He's down there under that apple tree. Now the trouble starts, thought Wilbur. Now I'll catch it. The goose heard the racket, and she too started hollering. Run! Downhill! Make for the woods! The woods! She shouted to Wilbur. They'll never catch you in the woods. The cocker spaniel heard the commotion and ran out from the barn to join the chase. Mr. Zuckerman heard, and he came out the machine shed where he was mending a tool. Lurvy, the hired man, heard the noise and came up from the asparagus patch where he was pulling weeds. Everybody walked toward Wilbur, and Wilbur didn't know what to do. The woods seemed a long way off, and anyway, he had never been down there in the woods and wasn't sure he would like it. Get around behind Lurvy, said Mr. Zuckerman, and drive him toward the barn. And take it easy, don't rush him. I'll go get a bucket of slops. The news of Wilbur's escape spread rapidly among the animals on the barn. Whenever any creature broke loose on Zuckerman's farm, the event was of great interest to the others. The goose shouted to the nearest cow of the Wilbur that Wilbur was free, and soon all the cows knew. Then one of the cows told one of the sheep, and soon all the sheep knew. The lambs learned about it from their mothers. The horses, in their stalls, in the barn, picked up their ears when they heard the goose hollering, and soon the horses caught on to what was happening. "Wilbur's out," they said. Every animal stirred and lifted its head and became excited to know that one of his friends had got free and was no longer penned up or tied fast. Wilbur didn't know what to do or which way to run. It seemed as though everyone was after him. If this was what it was like to be free, he thought, "I believe I'd rather be penned up in my own yard." The cocker spaniel was sneaking up him from one side. Lurvy, the hired man, was sneaking up on the other side. Mrs. Zuckerman stood ready to head him off if he was starting for the garden. And now, Mr. Zuckerman was coming down toward him, carrying a pail. "This is really awful," thought Wilbur. "Why doesn't Fern come?" He began to cry. The goose took command and began to give orders. "Don't just stand there, Wilbur. Dodge about, cried the goose. "Skip around. Run toward me. Slip in and out, in and out, in and out. Make for the woods. Twist and turn." The cocker spaniel sprang for Wilbur's hind legs. Wilbur jumped and ran. Lurvy reached out and grabbed. Mrs. Zuckerman screamed at Lurvy. The goose cheered for Wilbur. Wilbur dodged between Lurvy's legs. Lurvy missed. Wilbur Lurvy missed Wilbur and grabbed the spaniel instead. Nicely done, cried the goose. Try again. Run downhill, suggested the cows. Run up toward me, yelled the gander. Run uphill, cried the sheep. Turn and twist, honked the goose. Jump and dance, said the rooster. Look out for Lurvy, called the cows. Look out for Zuckerman, called the gander. Watch out for the dog, cried the sheep. Listen to me, screamed the goose. Poor Wilbur was dazzled and frightened by this hullabaloo. He didn't like being the center of all this fuss. He tried to follow the instructions his friends were giving him, but he couldn't run downhill and uphill at the same time, and he couldn't turn and twist when he was jumping and dancing, and he was crying so hard that he could barely see anything that was happening. After all, Wilbur was a very young pig. Not much more than a baby, really. He wished Fern were there to take him in her arms, and comfort him. When he looked up and saw Mr. Zuckerman standing quite close to him, holding a pail of warm slops, he felt relieved. He lifted his nose and sniffed it. The smell was delicious. Warm milk, potato skins, wheat middlings, Kellogg's cornflakes, and a popover left from the Zuckerman's breakfast. Come, Pig, said Mr. Zuckerman, tapping the pail. Come, Pig. Wilbur took a step toward the pail. No, said the goose. It's the old pail trick, Wilbur. Don't fall for it. He's trying to lure you back into the captivity. He's appealing to your stomach. Wilbur didn't care. The food smelled appetizing. He took another step toward the pail. Pig, said Mr. Zuckerman in a kind voice, and began walking slowly toward the barnyard, looking all about him innocently, as if he didn't know that a little white pig was following along behind him. You'll be sorry, called the goose. Wilbur didn't care. He kept walking towards the pail of slops. You'll miss your freedom, honked the goose. An hour of freedom is worth a barrel of slopes. Wilbur didn't care. When Mr. Zuckerman reached the pin peg, he climbed over the fence and poured the slops into the trough. Then he pulled the loose board away from the fence so that there was a wide hole for Wilbur to walk through. Reconsider, called the goose. Wilbur paid no attention. He stepped through the fence into his yard. He walked to the trough and took a long drink of slopes, sucking in the milk hungrily and chewing the pop over. It was good to be home again. While Wilbur ate, Lurvy fetched a hammer and some 8-penny nails and nailed the board in place. Then he and Mr. Zuckerman leaned lazily on the fence, and Mr. Zuckerman scratched Wilbur's back with a stick. "He's quite a pig," said Lurvy. "Yes, he'll make a good pig," said Mr. Zuckerman. Wilbur heard the words of praise. He felt the warm milk inside his stomach. He felt the pleasant rubbing of the stick along his itchy back. He felt peaceful and happy and sleepy. This had been a tiring afternoon. It was only still about 4 o'clock, but Wilbur was ready for bed. "I'm really too young to go out in the world alone," he thought as he lay down. So that is the end of chapter 3. I hope you liked it. It was very long because the chapter was about 12 pages. So I hope you like it. And yes, I do take pictures from the book, so all credits go to the book reader. So I hope you like this chapter of Charlotte's Web. And predict in the comments. If you predicted, I'll give you a shout out. Right now, there are probably, I'm going to check because I don't want to not give credit, but we will have discussions if you would like to, and I'm not sure if there is one in mine. Yes, there is. If you go on the online version, you can go to discussion, and you can say your predictions there. So that's pretty cool too. And make sure you check out a bunch of things. So I'm just going to type in there, predict for chapter 3. And if you do have the book, no peeking. So just click reply and you'll be good. Also, don't forget, if you just saw this video, you're spoiling it for yourself. You should go read chapter 1 with me. So if I go to chapter 2, let me just check. No one predicted. Okay, so go to each chapter, you're just going to predict there. So, yeah, I hope you like this chapter and this video, and see how many likes we can get. And yes, like, comment, share, subscribe. Bye!